I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. Hey, everyone. This is Kevin Conroy, the definitive voice of Batman. And you're listening to the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 207 of the Oblivion Bar podcast. I am Chris Hacker, one of your co-hosts here, and joining me is my BFF, Aaron Knowles.
That's it. Usually
Yeah,
there's a like pomp, circumstance, a little bit of glitter like thrown in the air. You know,
you wanted the flares, you wanted the pizzazz,
and my enraged green friend, Aaron Knowles.
Well, I will.
I'll
say that generally we sort of have like something to do with that topic, right? Like it's usually in reference to the thing we're talking about.
You could have said number one on my pull list.
Oh, there you go. Joining me this week is number one on my pull list and a series that I buy every variant to, my co-host and BFF, Aaron Knowles.
Thank you. I'll like you.
I like you. Everybody, welcome back to the Oblivion Bar podcast. Sort of a normal episode, Aaron, this week. We haven't done one of these in quite a while, right?
God. I feel like we haven't done an episode in a while.
I've been interviewing a lot of folks here on the show. So
yeah.
You've
been doing some solo. I've been doing some with you.
You've been doing some Han.
I've been doing some Han.
Yeah.
And then I just got back from a veterans retreat. I was gone last week, so that's why it was a little bit quiet over at the bar.
Sure. Yeah. In 35 seconds, tell us about your veterans retreat. I want to know about it because I haven't even heard about it yet.
It was another great experience with a group called Mission Flexible. I did find out that the person who runs it, her name is Lisa Jacob, you might recognize her. She plays the daughter of Robin Williams' character in Mrs. Doubtfire. She plays the oldest kid of the pilot in Independence Day. So like she's pretty famous.
We will not go quietly into the night.
I'm back. So yeah, her name's Lisa Jacob. She is just amazing. She retired from Hollywood to self-heal from, starting being 8 years old in Hollywood and all of the trauma that goes with that. And she discovered that she actually had a lot in common with military veterans. And so she just started this program and has been running it for several years. And it's been amazing working with her. And this was probably one of the last for a while of her retreats because she's moving to Canada. But there's going to be some work done ahead to figure out how to bring it and keep it going.
Sure.
So it was just a great experience at a place called Kripalu, which is up in the Berkshires of Massachusetts. And if you ever want to go somewhere that is life-changing spiritually, emotionally, and physically, go to Kripalu. I guarantee you will not be disappointed.
That's cool. And I love the community aspect of that, right? Like that's, I think, one of the greatest things about not only being in the military, but also leaving the military is you're often surrounded by folks, veterans, people who are in the military, people who are affected possibly, military brats and such, people who were surrounded by the military. And, speaking of community, Aaron, here's a transition for you. This week on the show, we are talking about Shopping for Superman, which is a brand new documentary from Wes Easton, a good friend of the show. We've actually had him on the show, had a conversation with him last month here in Indianapolis about Shopping for Superman, which, funny enough, Aaron, I will actually attach to the end of this conversation us talking about Shopping for Superman. So
I feel like we need to address the fact that his name is Wes Easton.
Right. That is.
I'm not the only one that noticed that, right?
No, yeah, that's a good observation.
Okay.
Be like being called like North South.
Yeah.
Wes, we apologize if you're listening right now.
Northeastern, southwestish.
That's right. So, Aaron, Shopping for Superman will be available to everybody. We got an early look, I guess I should say. Shout out to Wes and the entire Shopping for Superman team. They sent us an early screener of the doc so we could talk about it here on the podcast. And it'll be available to everybody on demand on September 19th. So it'll be available, I think, the week that you're listening to this conversation should be available. Maybe that next week. I don't know exactly timetables and all that. But it'll be available on Apple TV Plus, Google Play, Amazon Prime, basically all of those streaming services. And funny enough, Aaron, it'll actually be sort of coinciding the release with local comic book day as well, which is September 27th. So great time to sort of celebrate this place that we love so much, our local comic book shop.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is I'm excited to talk about it because I watched it yesterday. Chris, I don't know. I don't think you told me when you actually watched it, but we have not, just like we do movie reviews, which this is not going to be a movie review. This is more just a discussion about the subject matter and how it kind of resonates with us. But we don't share how we feel about things and how we feel about what we've just watched until the show. So you guys kind of get a fresh perspective of us discussing it. So that's one thing I really like about when we do these types of episodes, which we really don't do a lot like this. We do mostly, we'll talk about it and then give it a rating. We don't really just talk about it because we just both wanted to see this.
Yeah. And I will say that just, I guess for the layman, just as a disclaimer, we know Wes because, he's much like the rest of the comic book community. We all sort of know each other. It's a lot smaller than you think it is. But I will say that like my thoughts on this movie in no way reflect the fact because of my relationship and our relationship with Wes. And I guess that's maybe a spoiler for how I feel about the movie. I really liked it. But I will say that like, just so that everybody knows, we're not being paid by like Wes or anybody to like review this movie. We legitimately just wanted to talk about it. Yeah.
No, I would say that this is about the relationship that we all have with our comic book shops. Like that's what's important about this is highlighting the importance of what local comic book shops are. And I think that itself is a reason, even if you were to not like this, I think it's a reason for people to go, because documentaries are interesting no matter what. Everybody gets something out of it, a little bit different. So
you hear about that documentary about the mother who was like texting her daughter bad things for like 2 years about her boyfriend. Did you see this on Netflix? It was like a new doc. I know Netflix has totally bastardized the idea of what a documentary is.
Is this the one where like somebody was like messing with the girl and then she finds out it's her mom?
Yeah.
No, I had no idea. I remember I saw like a trailer for something like that. I'm just going to adjust my mic real quick. I saw a trailer for something like that. And then I'm like, they're like, you'll never guess who it was. And
it's a documentary called Unknown Number over on Netflix. And it's wild stuff. I won't spoil anything else for everybody, but it's pretty wild. And in no way is like Wes and his work here on Shopping for Superman bastardizing the idea of documentary. I think this is much more of like the idea of like what a documentary should be, right?
Yeah. Like no, I do. I happen to really like the catfish ones.
Sure. Yeah.
Those like because people it's, to me that's like it's like a spotlight on just how, I don't want to say like desperate or how dumb like some people can be, but how dumb our desperation might make us.
Loneliness is a hell of a drug. We'll say that, right? Like really puts you in a corner.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Aaron, real quick, before we get into Shopping for Superman, will you tell the folks really quickly about our upcoming panel just in a couple weeks here at New York Comic Con?
Yeah, absolutely. In a couple of weeks upcoming at New York Comic Con, we're going to have a panel. Just kidding. just kidding.
There it is. You found that. Look it up. We're not your mom. Like, go look it up. Come. But
you care? Go Google. No, we have an upcoming panel. New York Comic Con. It's on Friday the 10th at 12:45 p.m. That's in the afternoon. That's after lunch. Grab your lunch. Come and join us. Hang out with us. Come hang out with us. It's in room 1C03. That's 1 Charlie 03. For a live podcast recording with yours truly, obviously the stupendous, the beautiful, the sultry, the curvaceous Oblivion Bar podcast host, as well as our friends Brad and Lisa from Brad and Lisa Gullickson from Comic Book Couples Counseling, Botter Milligan of the Short Box podcast, and I call this a highlight, David Harper of Sketched Off Panel.
Yeah, he hates when we give him too much credit and put him on a pedestal. We'll do it.
I'm bringing him flowers. I'm bringing him flowers.
All these folks rock. And Aaron, yeah, absolutely. Very excited for this. It's going to be super, super fun. This is we didn't do a panel last year, right, in New York, but the year before that in 2023, we did.
Can I finish? Can I finish?
I'm going to let you finish.
Okay, so we'll also have goodies to give away. Come and see our New York City Comic Con 2025 exclusive poster and stickers. It's an homage of Stan Lee and Mobius's 1988 classic, The Silver Surfer. What is it? Parable? I thought it was just The Silver Surfer, but it might be Silver Surfer Parable.
Yeah.
And it's by our good friend Eamon Winkle.
Yes. Shout out to Eamon. Did an incredible job. Very, very excited for folks to see this. We've actually already posted a normal sort of teaser, I guess, on our Instagram and such on social media. But as Aaron said, yeah, if you want a sticker or a poster, we'll even have some shirts, not like a ton, but stuff we'll be handing out. And we'll have all that at the panel. So, and as Aaron said, that virgin holographic variant of the sticker without all the trade dress, you can only get that at the panel, not even our programs. Shout out to all the programs and David for helping us out, supporting the show and all the good things. But even they won't have access to this very, very exclusive sticker. So yeah, come join us Friday, October 10th, 12:45 p.m. room 1, Charlie 0, Tree. Is that how you say it phonetically? Is it tree?
Yep. Juan. You got to say 1.
Juan.
Charlie 0, tree.
Break.
Breaker 1 9.
Breaker. Okay, lastly, we're going to get into Shopping for Superman. Last thing we'll say is if you want to support the podcast, as we said, be a program or be like David, over on patreon.com/Oblivion Bar Pod. You get special access to a bunch of bonus content, Oblivion Bar content that we will only give out to folks that support us there, like the Grid, which is our weekly
Grid.
Weekly bonus episode. We're actually going to be recording one right after this because we're late this week. As Aaron said, he was off on his retreat, so we have to make it up to the programs today. So we'll be doing that.
Respect my mental health journey. Respect it.
I think the programs are cool with it. I'm not cool with it. I think you need to toughen up. You need to rub some dirt on it and be cool. But the programs, they empathize. They're definitely they're empaths. That entire crew and David. Yeah. So yeah, the Grid. You get that each week. Bonus episode available every Friday. You get special random care packages from Aaron and I. We'll just send out things randomly from our own collection, stickers, posters, all the things. You get episode transcripts, everything that we're reading from right now to prepare for the show. You will get that over on Patreon. A lot of cool stuff. You'll get actually behind the scenes stuff that we don't even share on our normal feed. So like, for instance, when we had Trad Moore on the show a couple weeks ago, the programs knew about that like a month before we even had him on the show. So they get that early access, which is really great. So
you know what I find interesting, Chris, is looking behind me right now. I have our first poster, our second poster, and then never planned this, but the third poster is going to have to replace a Galactus poster. He's basically been a placeholder for Galactus. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is cool. So Aaron has the Mike DeMundo Galactus eating a planet, sort of like it is like a grapefruit,
like an
apple. An apple, yeah. And so Aaron's gonna be replacing a Galactus poster with and you're Galactus. I think we should tell everybody in case you haven't seen it on social media. I am, of course, Silver Surfer. Duh. And Aaron is the large world-eating Galactus, the world eater.
I can eat a lot.
I love how last week you said that, and Eamon did an incredible job. Everybody,
he did
absolutely nailed it. No notes, incredible work. But it was funny when I first showed Aaron, he said, it sort of just looks like Galactus, but with a 5 o'clock shadow.
5 o'clock shadow.
Which I understand, but it totally, I think if you look at it, he nailed your features really, really well. So 7-day free trial available for free. You can just try it out, see if you like it. Listen to Aaron and I shenanigans over on the Grid. And then if you don't like it, you're more than welcome to peace on out. We don't blame you. So
not for everybody.
Yeah,
not everybody's cup of tea.
Select group of folks. So patreon.com/Oblivion Bar Pod. It's also in the show notes. Aaron, are you ready? You ready to talk about Shopping for Superman?
I'm excited. Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Wes Easton's Shopping for Superman. This episode is brought to you by Endless Comics, Games, and Cards. Whether you are a dedicated Wednesday warrior or looking for the latest drop of TCG and sports cards, Endless Comics, Games, and Cards has you covered.
While Endless is known for their large collection of both single-issue comics and library of graphic novels, not to mention their monthly comic book club, they also stay fully stocked with singles and sealed product for Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and many others.
What's the best part? You can set up your pull list online at endlesscgc.com and they will send your new books to you.
So head on over to endlesscgc.com or check them out on social media at endlesscgc.
Main topic.
Alrighty, let's talk about Shopping for Superman. Again, the brand new documentary from Wes Easton. So I guess mild spoiler warning. We'll be talking about some things, but in reality, most documentaries are, it's mostly just sort of a culmination or a overview of a thing you really like with some fun facts and all that, right? Aaron, you're smiling right now. What's going on?
It's like, it's a documentary, so you can't really like, there's nothing to spoil. Like, there's no like, hey, we're gonna research. Like, I'm just gonna let you know by the end of this movie, you'll have learned some things.
I didn't know that the golden age was in the 50s through the 60s.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I learned something.
Right.
No, it's like it's all stuff that it's like this is all public knowledge, but it's like this, like, to have it kind of presented in this way is just that's why documentaries are so awesome, is because there's just so much research. You hear it from the people who are involved in it, who are around it, who knew the subject matters and et cetera, going deeper into it. And I think that's what's really so important about this, is you hear from the mouths of the people who were directly involved with these things. And so I'll just say this. I don't necessarily think that Shopping for Superman was the best title.
Oh, we're already going into some hard feedback.
I only say that because I like the entire.
Wes? Are you listening?
I get it. I just feel like and I don't have a better idea. Like, that's the thing. It's like, why do you bring up a problem that you don't have a solution to? Like, right. I hate when that happens. But like, the entire time I'm like, okay, because there's like one part that's really about like shopping for Superman.
They don't buy one Superman in this doc. It's fake news.
Yeah. They're not like, they didn't buy Superman one Christmas gift in this. Okay. Like, who are you shopping for? He's not real. So for me, that, like, I thought it was really good. I felt like, I don't know. I just felt like the title didn't really, for me, didn't mesh a whole lot with the content of it. You know what I mean?
It's great for SEO, right? Superman.
Absolutely. If you're just trying to get it into the fucking people's feeds, nailed it.
Yeah. When I was doing a lot of research for this and putting together the transcript, every time I put in Shopping for Superman, it would just bring up James Gunn's Superman, just all the things about Superman.
Well, that's the other thing. I went to like look for the trailer, and I went to my my Amazon like remote, and I was like, like, hey, blah blah blah, hey, bitch, like Shopping for Superman trailer, and it literally played the James Gunn like Superman trailer.
Yeah. My initial thoughts are, this is wonderful. I honestly, it's just I feel seen, Aaron. I actually texted Wes after this. I was like, I feel seen. I feel heard, right? Like, this is, if there's like a documentary about a thing I love, and it's also such a niche thing, right? It's a niche thing within a niche fandom, right? Because there are probably millions of comic readers out there who have maybe either never been to a comic shop or don't often go to a comic shop, right? But I think preserving the local comic book shop, the brick and mortar place that we all go every Wednesday to pick up our books, must be preserved. It has to stick. It has to be around.
I like how you said, heard and seen. Like, that's kind of how you felt from this. Like, I felt inspired. Like, the first thing that I wanted to do after I finished watching this thing was call you up and be like, when are we starting our own shop?
Aaron, as we've learned from this documentary, margins are tight.
They're very tight. Tight. So I hear that, but I also feel like, much like this show, you and I, we have more to us than just comics. And I think stores that do more than just comics are really viable. Yeah. Because that's when you go into, like, what do you do? When you go into like a comic shop, you see way more than just comics. You see models, you see Pokemon, you see Yu-Gi-Oh, all this stuff. And those are all different ways of bringing in revenue. And I think that you and I don't know, for some reason, it made me feel like I would love to do a journey like that, like to go through that experience of what these shop owners and people talked about with my best friend.
You have to do it for the love of the game, right? Like these folks that, Wes talks to during this doc, you've got like Chuck Rosansky from Mile High as one person, Joe Field. You even have like some creators, obviously, like Jim Shooter, Dan Jurgens was in this.
Kyle Higgins
was in there at the end. I love how Chris Claremont is in for like a second. He just goes, 1990 happened, and then it all went to shit. And if you know anything about Chris Claremont, you know that while I think he's a pretty magical man overall, and he created some incredible comics over his 50+ year career, he's kind of a negative Nancy nowadays, everybody. And it's just funny that, like,
he's a curmudgeon.
He kind of is. He's like he's a wonderful curmudgeon, right? Like he'll talk to you about all of this incredible stuff. And then at the end he'll go, yeah, and I didn't get paid for any of it. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So, but to speak of what you're saying there, yeah, I agree. You and I, we contain multitudes, like Life of Chuck. But
beautiful statement.
I think that that's sort of the future for this industry. I think like the normal comic book shop, as we know it today, brick and mortar, 7 bookcases, a register, that's it. That's not going to exist, I think, in any type of normalcy going forward. It's going to be, hey, this is a cafe and it's kind of a bar and we do stand up on Tuesdays and Thursdays and we have a book club on Mondays and it's also a comic shop and it's also a bookstore and like it's going to have like all these different sort of events.
Multifaceted.
Because as you said earlier, it is at the end of the day, it's a community center, right? And in a world where like community is getting so sparse, we're all so glued to our phones. And I'll be the first to admit that I am on my phone way too much, especially in today's sort of climate, right? You kind of want to stay informed and sort of prepare for what you're in for. And I find myself often like, man, I hate the fact that I'm sitting here staring at my phone, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah. I need you to give me the signal once we get to the point in the discussion where I can just kind of like go well into like all of my thoughts about this documentary.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. I mean, I really did love it. I absolutely loved it because, you know, again, bringing up the fact that I am of us two, the newer reader of comics.
I thought we retired that, Aaron. Everybody, just in case you don't know, over the last 5 years of the Oblivion Bar, every time Aaron talks about a comic, he goes, as the new reader, Aaron, you will forever be the new reader. As long as you're with me in a room or on this podcast.
That's
as the new reader.
That's the joke. Okay. It's a running gag.
Yes. Inside jokes. We have them.
Sorry. It's been a few days since I've gotten to laugh with my best friend. I missed your smell. No, I loved, so you kind of brought me into comics. I'll just say, like, you introduced me to comics. You brought me into the idea of reading and collecting, and you showed me that there's so much like beauty in these books. And I loved how this documentary really showed every angle of what comics are, what they were, and what they can be to many different types of people. It was inspirational. It was emotional. It was informational. There's so much to this movie that I honestly, this is one of those documentaries where like, I would recommend this. I think this needs to be like a poster in every comic shop that says like, hey, shopping for Superman, release now, go watch it now. Because this is really where people can feel inspired to go to the comic shop. Because if you have never been to a comic shop where you feel like you're a part of the family or you're welcomed in there or people care about what you want to read or collect or find, one of the best feelings that I can remember in recent years was walking into my comic shop and the guy behind the counter, like people caring enough about what I enjoy to put stuff aside for me before I even ask.
I want to be very deliberate about like naming comic shops because I've had many local comic shops. I know you have as well. Which comic shop was that for you?
So the first one was Rick's Comic City in Clarksville, Clarksville, Tennessee. So that was really the first time that I experienced that, and it was amazing. It was really, really amazing. And then here in Brooklyn was like Galaxy Collectibles. Here in Brooklyn. And so my friend John, who I walked in there, John and Ming, who both work there, they both like would put stuff aside for me, or they'd have like stuff in the back. They'd be like, hey, I got some stuff. You want to check it out real quick? And so they knew. They even put stuff to like aside for Carly, for my wife, which again, when you have somebody that like genuinely cares about what you collect, what you love, what you want to read, gets to know your taste, your style, that is on the precipice of friendship. And that's like, you know, again, that's why people go to like bars, I think, because they have that familiar feeling where they can open up and be free and people know what they enjoy. I don't know. It's hard. I could probably say it a million different ways, but that is truly what makes comic shops unique, is that you can walk in there passionate about one thing, but also be introduced to a million other things.
The sense of community, again, as we said a moment ago, there is a camaraderie that goes along with loving a thing. It's also why I love going to Comic-Con as well. But I think comic shops in general, because Aaron, I think I know this about you. Correct me if I'm wrong. I definitely know this about me, is that part of the reason why I wanted us to start this podcast in April of 2020 to talk about comics and movies and television and anime and video games and nerd culture is because in my normal life, and the Chris Hacker that walks around and says things and wears nice pants and like just is a normal human being on the front face. Doesn't know, no one knows that I really love Spider-Man or that I have a Silver Surfer tattoo or that I've read Saga of Swamp Thing every year since 2009. No one knows that, right? The reason why we created this show and the reason why I continue to go to the local comic shop definitely every week, but generally on Wednesdays, New Comic Book Day, is because it's that sense of community. It's a safe haven. It's this place that you go where you know everybody. It's like Cheers, where everybody knows your name.
Know your name. Yeah.
It's like that place that you go where you guys can share in this love. And I was talking to, I've had, again, as you said, multiple local comic book shops of my life. My first one was Downtown Comics in Indianapolis, which, funny enough, later here in this episode, you'll hear us talk to Wes Easton, the director of Shopping for Superman. That was at a Downtown Comics location, the actual downtown location in Indianapolis. But mine was on the west side of Indianapolis. Then it became the Fancy Shop, longtime sponsor of the show there at the beginning in St. Louis, Missouri, St. Charles specifically. And then, here recently it was Mage's Comics in Greenwood, Indiana. And then, even up to and here recently, it's been Comic Carnival here on the north side of Indianapolis. I try to spread the wealth because I have a lot of money to give, So I think it's important that we very deliberately, and I'm going to steal, I've completely adopted and stolen this saying from good friend of the show and comic writer, journalist over at The Beat, Zach Quaintance. We'll actually have him on the show here soon to talk about his new Kickstarter that he's releasing here soon. He has this saying that I've completely fallen head over heels for, which is that comics demand our participation. If we want it to exist in the form that we have it currently. And Wes is doing this with Shopping for Superman. And Aaron, we're doing this with the Oblivion Bar. Our friends Brad and Lisa are doing this with Comic Book Couples Counseling. Dave is doing it with Off Panel, Botter with Shortbox, so on and so forth. If you want this thing to exist and you want healthy, exciting, entertaining conversation about this thing we love, we have to do it. We can't expect anybody else to carry the torch. So
exactly.
I know that's long-winded, but that's when I watched this movie, it just brought up all these warm feelings. It took him 10 plus years to make this documentary. I don't know if that's said anywhere, but he talks about it in our conversation that he started this documentary in the early 2010s and is just now finishing it after a Kickstarter as well, which humble brag, I am a contributor of. But it took him a long time to do this, but gosh, was it not worth it? This, again, as you said, totally agree. I'll echo it. This should be required watching for every new employee hired at every comic shop across the entire nation.
100%. The amount of knowledge that goes into this. And the other thing that was really fun about it was, as I'm watching this, I am creating places on Google Maps that I want to visit. I'm creating a list of comic shops that I want to go to. Mile High Comics in Denver, Colorado. I mean, one thing that's what was kind of cool was Midtown Comics here in New York was featured in it as well. There's just some places that you just, I don't know. I think it's awesome to know that there are comic shops, and it's so sad because it's awesome to know that there are comic shops that have stood the test of time. It's also very sad and heartbreaking that there are comic shops that just will not make it through when COVID happened. If something else happens, there's going to be shops that just will not make it, and that's very, very unfortunate. But I think that it's important for us to, as members of the community, to really pursue going to these places and celebrating what they've done for us as the readership, but also creators. They're Chris, you've known creators that have worked at the comic shops with you, and it is so cool to know that it's the humble beginnings for creators, but it's also the humble beginnings for these shops. And again, I am so inspired by this documentary that it makes me really miss that those experiences at the comic shop. And I don't know. There's just it brought up so many warm feelings and memories and things. And also was just super interesting because I had no idea that people had gone out and really that bought comics like this. At one point, somebody in the documentary said that there was a customer that came in that bought 300,000 copies of The Death of Superman.
They want to pay for their kids' college
fund. And then the person was like, that's not going to happen, buddy. So it's interesting, And so there's just so many little different tidbits of information in this that
I think that was Joe Field from Flying Colors Comics in Concord,
it was
California.
who said that. So
yeah. That's the image boom was a wild time, everybody. And like you said, at that time, I think I remember the documentary saying that it was about 10,000-ish comic shops existing throughout the US. And then after the Image boom, because, and I think they make a very deliberate point in the doc that the death of Superman, 9 weeks after the death of Superman by Dan Jurgens, and I'm spacing the artist now off the top of my head, but 9 weeks, they bring him back.
Yeah.
And people lost their fucking minds. People were like, I'm done with this. I am done with this
They
medium.
were all rugged. Yoink.
But, and I get that to a certain extent, right? And then obviously, like you said, COVID, this industry is like, I think, and I might be misquoting
Mark the time, 2:51, September 14th. Go ahead, Chris.
I think it was Jack Kirby said that comics right now, in this exact moment that you and I are talking here, Aaron, and that people are listening to, it is the most popular that it will ever be. And it is also the closest that it's ever been to the brink of destruction.
Mark this time, 2:51, September 14th.
Should have got the seconds on that one just to be really.
I say that because while I'm watching this movie, that's exactly what was going through my head the entire time. Is every time we converse about comic shops, the thing that's always it's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in every comic book aisle. Okay. It is that comics are always on the precipice of failure. And it's so unfortunate, but like watching this, it really brought the point home that the comic industry is not only its greatest advocate, but it's also its own worst enemy.
Yeah, and its biggest enemies are they're aptly named Marvel Comics and Detective Comics.
Yeah,
they are often the ones like leading the charge of the destruction of this industry we love so much.
It is so. It must be like it must be so hard for the publishers to look back or to look at themselves or look in the mirror or look at a mirror that's facing the entire comics industry and be going like we're shooting ourselves or we're fucking ourselves because like it sucks because but that's the way that the world works though. How do you bring more money in without innovating? Right. How do you make an industry grow without creating a new arm of it? Without creating a new aspect of collecting? How do you make it grow without potentially killing yourself?
Which is what we saw in the 90s. That was like the precipice of like blind bags and foil covers and multiple variants and
trading cards and art, all that stuff. Like trying to, again, it's like, hey, we want to succeed. So let's do something new and interesting, but that's taking away from our bottom line also because
it's oversaturating.
People only have so much amount of money to spend, and we're taking away our own money by creating more product.
Right. And I think again, speaking on what Joe Field was saying in that moment, talking about Death of Superman, is that like people were buying, this is so crazy to me that people thought that this was an actual thing they were going to be able to do. Like people buying boxes, pallets of Death of Superman and X-Men #1 and Spawn #1 and Savage Dragon, all these things. You have to understand in the world of collecting, this is like a tale as old as time for everybody. So if you're hearing this, just know, don't fucking buy variants, okay? You know, the 1 in 50s, the 1 in 100s, don't fucking buy them, okay? And I'm talking to myself as well. I'm looking at myself.
Rephrase this. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Rephrase this. Do not spec ratio covers.
Great correction.
Do not spec ratio covers if you're trying to make money off of them.
Yeah.
Buy them
because you love them. Yeah,
exactly. Buy them because you want to collect them. You love the art. Do not buy them because you hope. Because that's the thing. That's the same thing. Like I go online and I'm like, right. I'll tell you this. Here's the perfect example. Okay, I go to eBay. I'm looking at the new Imperial covers that have She-Hulk on it.
The Jonathan Hickman Marvel run.
Yes.
Yep.
There is a She-Hulk Virgin variant that you can pre-order. That's going to be graded. Okay, it is $199.98. That is insane. That is insane. You don't know the book is good. You don't know if the book is bad. Whatever. If I buy that book also, like just loose, maybe $100, maybe, somewhere. Yeah. Who knows? The next week when they're still available, they're going to go down to $50, $60. And it's like, so why buy them that expensive that early on? Because you think, I mean, yes, every once in a while they might, what is it? 1% of them are going to go absolutely baller.
It's got to be less than 1%, right? Like it's got to be like the one that
38%.
Right. The one that comes to mind immediately is like Edge of Spider-Verse #2. First appearance of Spider-Gwen, like something like that, where you pre-ordered the variant and it worked out because Spider-Gwen became this huge thing. Yeah, but that's one moment in a sea of variants from every title across every single publisher, right? But sorry, to go back to my point though, what I was saying is Like, no, you're fine. And that's a good point to make, is that like, yeah, if you're going to buy variants, of course, I buy variants like weekly, but like I do it because I want a Daniel Warren Johnson cover, or I really want a Rose Besh cover or a Jen Bartel cover. Don't buy them for spec. In order for something to be worth anything, it has to at first be worth nothing. Like the reason Amazing Fantasy 15 is worth so much money, besides the fact that it's the first appearance of Spider-Man, is because A, it was once 15 cents, and B, they made 1 million of them and everyone read it and threw it away. That's why it's worth so much money now, you know?
Just a real quick side quest.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into the news or the reasoning behind it, but you probably know this. They've canceled and recalled all copies unsold of Red Hood #1.
Yeah.
That was released.
I've heard the hoopla. I'm familiar.
This past Wednesday. I'll let you, the customer, the listener, etc., go back and look into why. But I went into a comic shop on my way back from my veteran retreat, okay? And I said, hey, do you happen to have any copies of that Red Hood #1? He goes, oh, are you trying to spec it? And I'm like, and I was like, oh, fuck. No, I am a... I used to cosplay as Red Hood.
He loves
I fucking love Jason Todd. I love Red Hood. So for me, it was like, no, I was hoping that I could get a copy of it before it all got sent back. However, do your own research, because also I did want the cover, but also I went back and I researched. There's a reason why this book was pulled, and it was because somebody said some things or posted some things that should not have been said. That's as far as I'm going to go. But also do the research, because just because you might want to support this person or you think that it's going to go wild, people say dumb shit about everything.
We do it weekly here on the show.
We say it all weekly. So I'm just saying, do your research before you buy something just because somebody said some dumb shit.
Yeah,
so,
this is the Gretchen Felker Martin series, everybody. Just so you're knowing what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
What was going to be issue 1 of Red Hood over at DC.
Of one of the first solo story arcs in several years.
Yes.
For Red Hood. Motherfucker.
Has he gotten a normal, like, cause he had like Red Hood and the Outlaws. He obviously had like the Judd Winnick we're way off topic, everybody. We apologize. We're gonna get back to shopping for Superman, but I'm trying to think of like
these are the conversations though that you would have at a comic book shop, and this is what would really drive the discussion is the foundation of democracy, in my opinion. And don't quote me on that. I don't know if somebody said that before. I'm just saying discussion.
Aaron Knowles, 2025,
and debate and the willingness to have a conversation with somebody. That is the whole foundation of democracy. It's being able to come to a compromise and understand the people who are in the discussion. Now, that's the beauty about comic shops, is because you can have fake fucking people driving real fucking conversations, deep ones.
Oh yeah.
And I think that that's so important. I think that's so vital. And again, that's to round back, to segue back to, shopping for Superman. That's what this documentary points out, is that we can have these conversations over fake fucking characters and still be friends and still shop at the store. I don't have to agree with everything you say, because the same thing, like, can Superman beat Goku's ass? That's a conversation you're going to have in a comic shop.
Right. Yeah. There's everybody, if you're not driving, please close your eyes and let me just describe one of my favorite sort of moments. And Aaron, this will lead us into a question I have for you as well. There's this rare moment that can only happen at comic shops where you go in there, hey, last name's Hacker, can I get my pull? You've got 2 people up at the cash register. Somebody is paying. Another guy is just sort of looking at the wall behind the counter with all the high priced books, all the things, right? And then all of a sudden someone says, oh, Saga, the 4th hardcover's coming out here soon. Did you hear about that? Brian K. Vaughan just posted about it. He also has Spectators coming out this week with Nico Henderson. You hear about that? That came out this week. All of a sudden, the cash register person, the clerk, the people that were there buying their pool, all these people were all chatting. We're all talking. We're all having this conversation, as Aaron said, this moment where we're all talking about this thing we love. And it's like there's this shorthand. Aaron, we love Inside Baseball, right? Inside Baseball is talking about these series that, like, who else gives a shit about Birds of Prey number 18? Nobody besides the 3 people that are in this shop with me and, the cash register person. But like, yeah, it's just, there's this moment, right? Like that can only happen at a brick and mortar comic shop. It's so important. I had a question for you. Let me think about it 1 second.
Is it, do I have a particularly like favorite
Yep.
moment or memory? Because that's a question that I want to actually, I would love for the listeners. I would love for our Patreon members. I would love for people to come up and be like, hey, like, here's a beautiful memory I'd like to share of an experience that I had at a comic shop, or here's a beautiful experience that I've had, etc.
Yeah. Well, let me push it on to you then.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular moment that comes to mind immediately in a comic shop that really just like is a core memory for you?
I mean, besides my buddy George really like taking the time to put books aside for me and put them into my pull box, like that'll always be like a core thing for me. Like that really meant the world for me, because as somebody who has traveled around many places, who has lived many places, who has lived many lives, I don't have a lot of places that have felt like I've had roots there. And to have a friend, like to have somebody that I consider I can call a friend that knows my taste in like music or whatever, and will put stuff aside for me, that meant the world for me. And it's such a small thing. It's something he probably does for 100 other people who have boxes at the comic shop. But that was an amazing experience. You know, another one, you know, I've had multiple recently, because one of the first times that I came to visit you, I want to say it was in
St. Louis.
It was in St. Louis, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you took the time to show Carly around the comic shop and like get her interested in stuff, just watching that conversation between my best friend and my wife, her actually like you know, absorbing it and processing it and like really enjoying it and actually picking up like Wonder Woman Dead Earth and like these other things and really like being interested in it. That meant the world to me. Like that was so, I know a lot of things mean the world to me because we all have lived very short lives. But it meant a lot to me to see that experience, to not only have a moment where my best friend and my wife are bonding, but also to have that moment where it's like, this is something that she and I can go through life with as well.
Was my first time meeting Carly, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I was proud of you because I'd never really seen you like do the comic book shop thing. And, you know, I've always known that you were good at talking to people and like, you know, but this was like a whole different level. This was Chris in rare form, to where he is inspiring. He can read somebody and he knows what they will probably enjoy reading. And it was a pleasure. It was like a heart pleasure to see.
That moment and moments like that are the absolute best.
Yes.
Not just in person, not just specifically with Carly, even though that one very specifically means a lot, but to talk to somebody and to get a read on them, you know, and see what are their interests, what do they like to read generally, and then to find something that they actually really do enjoy. Gosh, that is not a small thing, right? And that's the least we can do, everybody. If you're listening to this and you think, wow, that you can do that. Like, it's so easy to just like at a comic shop or with a friend or someone that you know in your life, just without prompting, without being asked, be like, hey, I read this really cool thing recently. Want to check it out? That means the world to people a lot of times.
And actually, you know what? The last thing I'll share is this week when I was actually at the Veterans Retreat, I got to sit down and people were asking me about the podcast, you know, who are in my group, and I explained to them. They're like, so what are some awesome things that you've gotten to do, or like people you got to talk to? And I was able to share with them.
Drop on them.
Well, a little bit, but
we know David Dustmalch, and it's not a big deal. I mean, I know
drop
him.
that name. No, I think one of the things that'll really stay in my heart for a long time, and the thing that I got to share, especially with this group, because you know, there's not a lot of times where someone who's a retired U.S. Army member, you know, I can be vulnerable, but around other veterans I can be, and that is an incredible experience. Sure. But I got to share the conversation that we had with Christopher Priest. About Superman Lost, because again, we process a lot of things when we're in these retreats, and one of them for me was some of the the things that I've had to deal with like PTSD and some of the experiences from overseas, and to explain to people who also weren't necessarily into reading Superman comics but have read comics before, to get them to show interest in this book because it was so impactful to me and my journey of healing from trauma, that meant so much to me. And I got a little emotional during the conversation because it is really tough to explain to somebody that a comic book character is relatable because of the trauma that they've gone through. And so that was a really special moment that I was able to share with some other veterans, and hopefully they'll go and pick up this book because they seemed like they generally were interested in order to help them heal and process some of their trauma as well. So I just think that, again, learning that picture books with words in them can impact people on an emotional, mental, and physical level is amazing. It's just simply amazing.
Roger Ebert said this about movies, but I think it can apply to any story. They're empathy machines. Stories are empathy machines. If you're able to connect with a story in the way that you did with Superman Lost, or the way that I do with, like, say, In by Will McPhail or Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, gosh, there's like no better feeling. Actually, this week just sort of combined our two moments. This is a really important moment for me. This is not necessarily at a comic shop, but it does with comics. Is that we talked to Anna Meyer last week on the show, author and artist on St. Catherine from 23rd Street, and Olivia, my partner, was really interested in it. She was interested like before I even talked to Anna. She read it on her way to Colorado, and the text she sent me was like, gosh, I love this. This is incredible. I'm going to recommend it to my cousin. Like, all, the whole thing. Like, she just absolutely adored the story. And I got to send that to Anna and be like, hey, this is what your story meant to my partner. I love it. And you know that because I'm a nerd and I had you on my podcast. But my partner, who likes comics a little bit, like, she doesn't own 1,000 trades like I do. She's just a very passive reader, loved your book. And I think to be able to share that, I think, is not only one of the biggest perks of having this show, but also one of the biggest perks of being a comic reader and a fan of this medium. So back to Shopping for Superman, Aaron. Let's bring it back. Let's bring her back.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Shopping for Superman was the winner, Aaron, of Best Documentary, not only at San Diego Comic-Con 2025, but also at the Los Angeles IFS Film Festival. So it's garnering a lot of praise, not only critically, but commercially as well. And for good reason, as we've talked about. It's incredible. And Aaron, I'm going to pass it off to you, because while I was very, very intrigued to hear about this person and sort of learn the history of Phil Suling, I think it's important that people know this guy, because from what I understand, and I've heard rumblings of him before, I've heard the name, but I didn't know what his significance was in comics. It sounds like he was a real son of a bitch that just had a bunch of great ideas. And that happens, right? Like, if you read any classic book about Marvel or DC and like being in the bullpen in the 60s where everybody's smoking cigars and stabbing each other in the back, it was like a reality TV show. Phil was a part of that crew where, like, it was cutthroat, but yeah, he obviously had a really credible idea. Aaron, talk a little bit about Phil and sort of his, being the godfather of the direct market.
It's so funny that, like, I feel like this is really where probably the origins of, like, New York Comic-Con probably came from. And living here now, it's funny to learn about. So Phil Suling, who is considered the godfather of direct marketing, which, if you follow the show, if you listen to us, we've been talking a lot about Diamond. We've been talking a lot about, Penguin Random House, like all these, like, publishers and distributors and everything that goes into it. It's been a tumultuous last few years, but Suling was the organizer of the annual New York Comic Art Convention, and that was originally held in New York City every July 4th weekend throughout the 1970s. And then he made comic book history on July 28th, 1977, by appearing on an episode of the Mike Douglas Show to discuss comic book collecting and conventions. And it was really, they showed clips of that conversation during the documentary, and it was really interesting because he just he kind of reminded me of, like, Andre the Giant. Yeah. He was just like this giant of a man. He had a huge presence, and yet he had this confidence about him. But at the same time, when he's sitting, he kind of looked a little bit insecure, which I think we can all kind of relate to in situations like that. But,
but he was also talking about this medium that was, up to that point it was for children, right? Like,
for children. Yes.
Yeah. So he was like, I would say one of the first outspoken people to, like, see this medium for more than just being children's reading trash, right?
Yes. And that's he was basically saying, like, and I loved one of the things I'm just going to jump to real quick is, I don't remember which artist or who said it in the documentary, but they stated that, kids who grow up reading comics go on to be lifelong readers in every other, like, in every instance of digestible medium. So
It's
I
a
think
gateway
that's
drug.
incredible. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So later with his Seagate distributors company, Suling developed the concept of the direct market distribution system for getting comics directly into comic book shops, bypassing the established like newspaper and magazine distributor method, or so like going from the news rack to the comic shop distribution method, where there were no choices of title, of quantity, or delivery directions were permitted. So it was this really bare bones distribution. And it was interesting because this documentary covers the evolution of how comic shops really became the lifeblood of distributing comics. But at the same time, in order to get that to happen, it was a battle of giants. It was literally companies fighting for the ability to distribute comics land, sea, and air. And it was again, if you love any of this logistical information or the background behind these things, this is another reason to watch this documentary, because it goes well into it. It doesn't cover everything. I wish they would have kind of covered when this whole Wednesday Warrior, like release on Tuesday, Wednesday kind of idea was implemented. I would have liked to seen that fully fleshed out. But to learn the journey that comics have taken amongst different distributors and bankruptcies and problems and cutthroat, what do you call it? Like lawsuits. And it's so interesting.
I think people often don't realize this, and I think we know this on some level, but this documentary did a great job of sort of shedding new light on the idea is that comics, for as long as they've been around, have mostly been old, rich white dudes fighting each other over the rights to sell these things, right? Or to write these things. Like, of course, as I said, like the Marvel bullpen was just like littered with folks who hated each other and were like at each other's throats constantly to get ahead. Because like money was tight, and this industry has never been an industry where people make a ton of money. Now, again, Phil, like the documentary is very adamant about saying like Phil gets rich for a bit, but then like quickly the folks around him go, wait, he's got a great idea. We could do that too over here. And then all these people start realizing that they could also start their own distribution. And then it sort of all implodes on itself because Phil was getting preferential treatment from the publishers. They all knew him from sort of the Comic-Con scene and just like him making relationships, right? So like they gave him preferential rights because they knew him. But then after a while, that goodwill sort of goes away. You're like, there's enough people that can do things in a very similar or cheap way that, hey, you're my bud. Capitalism doesn't care about being buds, like you eventually lose out on that. And
that's what it says. It's the industries are all their own worst enemy, because somebody's going to go in there and somebody's going to invent or think about, somebody's going to dream up a brand new, cheaper, more efficient way of doing it. And that was it. Like, and again, when I talk about wishing I had known, like when the Tuesday, Wednesday, like street date requirement was implemented, is because one thing that was really interesting was the battle of getting the books to the shops the earliest. If you could get them to your shop the earlier the better, the more you would sell. And that is such an interesting concept, because again, a lot of us only really know this idea of going on Wednesday to be a Wednesday Warrior. I've only ever seen comic shops that release all of them on Wednesday, but for a while there, like DC was available on Tuesday before Marvel on Wednesday. So
I think that was a deliberate effort as we're talking about it. Like, I think that was an effort by DC to go, hey, it's just an advantage, right? It's them trying to take advantage of a moment, right? That's a lot of times that's how you get ahead in this ever-changing landscape of distribution, is like, what small thing can I do to be better than insert publisher, right? We're seeing it with right now with blind bags. For a while, DC wasn't doing there's multiple moments in my life that I can remember. Like when New 52 happened with DC in the early 2010s, every single book that they put out was $2.99. It was a deliberate effort because people were getting really upset that comics were increasing in price. So like for a long time, everything is $2.99. And then they also, for a while, DC wasn't doing any variants. They had a cover B, but it wasn't any more expensive. They didn't have ratios. And now, of course, they're doing ratios. You're seeing it with like die cut covers. You're seeing it with blind bags. You're seeing it with
exclusives,
ash cans. Like all these things.
Ash cans, exclusives,
foil covers.
Everybody can have their own variant these days. Like there is no end. Every comic shop has, if they can afford it, they can have their own variant. And that's the crazy thing.
Yeah. So again, I don't know how much more we can really say about the movie. I will say that, like, here's some of the people that show up, I guess, in the documentary. We have Kevin Eastman shows up, Derek Robertson, Megan Hutchinson, Jim Mahfood, Phil Lamar, Joe Ferreira, Chuck Rosansky again from Mile High Comics, Katie Pride, Joe Field. I mean, Jim Shooter, Dan Jurgens, so many folks, Bud Plant, Jeff Smith, like lots of folks show up, and it's all either comic shop owners, people who have worked in the industry for a long time, distributors. It's just incredible. And all the talking head stuff is great. I think I think that's sort of the last thing I'll say about Shopping for Superman is that it's just extremely well made. What Wes and co were able to create here with this again, a film that took not only 10 years, but was Kickstarted at one point for extra sort of marketing and such. Phenomenal job. Again, as we've already said it, and I'll say it one more time, this should be required watching for every comic book shop owner and clerk going forward. So, Aaron, is there anything that I had a couple things I wanted to sort of highlight at the very end, if I can, just so,
absolutely. Go
sort
ahead.
of get your feel on it before we get over to Wes and that conversation with him. So I found it fascinating that Chuck Rosansky from Mile High Comics, he said that he could sell 10,000 comics a day for 26 years. That would be the only way that he could get rid of his entire stock there at Mile High Comics.
So they actually showed a couple of, I think it was like news articles of comic shops that were closing. And it's funny because I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but there's a place here in, I think it's in Brooklyn, but it's called Cox Comics, Coaches, whatever. So he's been like closing his like warehouse for like 3 years.
You've told me that you've gone to that warehouse, right?
Yes. I mean, it is insane. I don't know what it's like, but I'm still seeing postings of the collection and him like trying to sell stuff and close out of there. So, I mean, sometimes I like, I could just pop over there, but like, I'm just the same time, I'm like, what's, I don't know. But to me, that was like super interesting seeing the different comic shops and the amount of stuff that's in them, because that one has,
Mile High is insane, dude.
It is literally insane. I just went to one in Toronto. It was Gotham City Comics, I think. And that place was massive. And they were getting ready for their fan expo, the Toronto, I think it's Toronto Fan Expo or something.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of their stuff was boxed up and gone, but like this place was still like wall of just like comics and variants and grades and all this stuff, like going up the walls. It was nuts.
I have to say, just to go back to Mile High really quickly, if you ever go, I went a couple months ago when I was in Denver for a work conference, and it's
nice.
I would say it's a museum that sort of masquerades as a comic shop. Whereas like you can buy things, but it's sensory overload. The moment you walk in, you don't, and someone who like I'm like Ron Swanson in that episode of Parks and Rec when he goes to Lowe's and the guy goes, "Hey, can I help you with anything?" And I go,
"I know more than you."
I know more than you. I don't ever say that. I've never said that to anybody, but that's what I think in my head. I'm always like, "Thank you. I'm actually good. Thank you so much." But in my head, I'm like, "Get away from me. I know what I'm doing." But Mile High is the bylaw in that thought, because you go in and it is just wall to wall, not even wall to wall, ceiling to wall. It's a warehouse that it's got everything, and it's more expensive. Like it's purposely more expensive because when you go in, you're going there for the experience and they want to catch you to like buy things. Right. But it's a bucket list place that everyone should go, I think.
Yeah.
If you're a comic fan, you should go to Mile High.
I definitely, while I was watching, I was like, we need to go to Denver.
Yes. Another thing I had was, I already talked about, we talked about Phil Suling and sort of his, bringing together, the direct market and distributing comics, being sort of the godfather of that. The perfect storm of distribution, that world collapsing, and the rise of Diamond, as we've talked about. And so we're seeing the fall of Diamond currently. And I've heard people say this, but like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And we're kind of seeing that right now with Diamond. Mm-hmm. And they're suing individual publishers. They're a piece of shit, everybody. And I've been saying it from the beginning, but like they were a necessary evil. That's very apparent in this film. Like it goes over to the fact that like had Diamond not existed at the time, had it not already been a major player during the disruption of and sort of the downfall of the image boom and the buyer boom of the 90s. If Diamond wasn't there already owning almost half of the industry, the comics industry would have failed as we know it. If they weren't there to like pick up the pieces and sort of become a conglomerate and become a monopoly at that time, because all those other publishers were not prepared for this. They were they were overstocked. They had so much back stock of things that they could not sell. And Diamond was the only one that was like, okay, well, we'll buy you. Like, you want to just give us all your stock? We'll buy you and all the things. Yeah, it's just that sort of contextualized all of that. I love the emphasis on young readers at the end of the film and how like extremely important it is for us as comic fans, but also for comic stores specifically. They have to get young readers on board. You have to get them hooked early, guys. It's a gateway drug, as we've said. You got to get them in there, and you got to make sure that they're seen and heard in comic shops. If you're a comic shop guy who just like sits behind the register and just talks shit to the guy you've been talking to for the last 17 years, some pull holder who has been picking up every Batman title since 99, like since the death of Robin, or the
Death in the Family.
Death of the Family. Thank you. Since the Death in the Family, like,
wow, look at that.
Yeah, good job, Aaron. That's not good. You have to like really make sure the young reader has a gateway. And then the last thing I'll say is that there's an emphasis on this idea that I've been screaming, Aaron. I've been telling you, I try to bring this up as much as I can with comic writers and artists when they come on the show. The big two, specifically, I'm looking at you, Marvel and DC, but I think publishers in general, I think it's getting better, but it's horrific how bad the marketing is in comics. The fact that the writer and the artist and the creative team have to do any marketing at all.
Their own marketing.
The fact that like we are, like if I were to describe the Oblivion Bar or folks like us, we are essentially a marketing outlet for them. We bring them on the show. We chat with them for an hour-ish to talk about the thing they want to talk about, to help hopefully get people interested in their work. That's a pleasure for Aaron and I. We love doing that. But they shouldn't have to do that. I'm so happy they do. It's sort of a double-edged sword, right? I'm of two minds. But comic publishers should do a much better job. Because like you and I, Aaron, and people listening to this show right now, we're going to buy the shit. Don't market to us. We're going to buy it. We know it. We know we're looking for it. The people who look through previews and all that shit, like we're going to market to people who don't already buy comics. That's who we need to market to, you know? Yeah. So that's the end of my spiel. Those are all the notes I had for the film. Aaron, unless you have anything else, I think that'll probably do it. Again, I don't think we need to say anything else. Go watch Shopping for Superman. September 19th, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, September 19th, it'll be available on Apple TV Plus and Amazon and Google Play, all the things. VOD, go rent it, buy it. This is important, everybody. Aaron, anything before we move on to our conversation with Wes?
No, I'm excited to get him talking.
All right. Well, without further ado, again, go pick up Shopping for Superman. But here is our conversation with the writer and director of the documentary we've been talking about, Wes Easton. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Oblivion Bar podcast. I'm, of course, Chris Hacker. I'm actually here live at Downtown Comics here in downtown Indianapolis. It is the week of Gen Con, and if you hear us sort of talking lightly, it's because we're trying not to bother the entire shop. We're already making them turn off their music and doing all the things, so we appreciate them for doing that. We'll try our best to sort of say very respectful in that sense. But I'm, of course, as you probably saw as you clicked on the episode, I'm joined by the director, the producer, all the cool things, the crowdfunder, all the things of Shopping for Superman, Wes Easton. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Wes.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. So you're in town this week here in Indianapolis for Gen Con.
Right.
Right. You were at San Diego the week before that.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my first question, and this is obviously total gotcha journalism. Okay. Are you more of a board gamer? Are you more of a comic reader? Where's your love truly lie?
Oh boy. If it meant an uptick in sales, then I'm the biggest board gamer that ever existed. Sure. In reality, I have a very tangential relationship with board gaming. I am contrarian by nature. So when someone says we're going to take out a game and it's going to take 30 minutes for you to learn, I say, no, I'm not. I'm going to drink and judge you for the lamest party ever. But I'm very wrong, because walking through the showroom, I saw some super crazy, amazing stuff that's like just beyond what I would have expected for a board game to be.
Sure.
Like really involved in beautiful stuff. Yeah.
I have about 10 to 12 board games at home that I've never played because, I've bought like the Marvel Heroes game. There's the DC Deck Builder. There's some Resident Evil crowdfunding games. And I just haven't found anyone in my close-knit friend group that would be willing to sit down for 8 to 10 hours to play that RPG. So it's nice to know that there are folks like me out there like you who, if it takes more than 12 minutes to explain a game, I lose interest and I'd rather just go take a shot, a fireball or something.
Yeah, we could definitely, it gets more interesting once like, okay, I'll try and learn this now. Like Catan, someone said, we're going to play that and said, I would rather play Civ alone
sure.
than this, I think.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this one more board game question before we get to shopping with Superman. Have you ever played Splendor?
I don't think so.
It's a sort of it's a gem based like resource game where you have to like collect a certain amount of gems, and then once you get to 15 you win. It's obviously more intricate than that. I'm explaining it terribly, but if you ever get a chance, definitely check out Splendor while you're there at Gen Con this weekend here in Indianapolis. There's two versions. I want to say there's the normal version, and then there's also a Marvel Thanos version where obviously collect the Infinity Stones instead of the normal gems. So it's my favorite board game of all time. It's super easy to learn. It's very quick. I would say games last, no longer than 20 minutes per game.
Okay.
Super fun. So everyone listening and Wes, check out Splendor. Really great. So, yeah. So let's talk about why you're actually here. Again, as we said, you were at San Diego Comic-Con last week promoting Shopping for Superman, which is your documentary, sort of, I would say, more of a love letter to the local comic book shop, a place that I think all of us sort of find to be a safe haven, a place of community, fellowship, all those good things. Some of us have even had the fortune of working at one, like myself. I've worked at the Fancy Shop in St. Charles, Missouri. And believe it or not, we are sitting currently in a Downtown Comics. I once worked at a Downtown Comics, but it was the West Side, which I think is no longer around. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to shift it over to you. I'm going to ask you, just give sort of a brief overview of, your history in filmmaking. I know it's maybe a big question, but
sure.
Sort of like your history in filmmaking. And then also, what was like the defining moment that made you decide to start working on Shopping for Superman?
Those are all great questions. So I started as a filmmaker actually in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to school at Georgia State University. I very much wanted to be a writer coming out of high school. I wanted to do the thing that is the key to making the film. You know what I mean? And when I graduated, I had spent a lot of time as a theater minor and took that experience over to Turner Broadcasting. So I was I joke with my wife. She's very much into sports. I'm not, but I would work around Shaq and the team for like NBA on TNT.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, Shaquille O'Neal and I were colleagues. We were coworkers. And she said, could he point you out of a crowd? Like, well, he wouldn't do that. Shaq doesn't like to point.
Right. He'd be pointing down anyway.
Exactly. So. Yeah. He's a mammoth of a man. He's so huge. But from there, the film scene in Atlanta was really taking off. And so I was able to work on a lot of feature films as a day player, but I realized I'd be doing a lot of schlepping cable around. And that there's nothing wrong with that, but my back and my knees disagree.
Sure. And
I still wanted to be more involved with the creative aspects. And I just didn't see a faster route to that through being a grip or an electrician, more an electrician than a grip. So I moved to the West Coast, and when I did that, all of my friends are laughing because they built Pinewood Studios in Fayetteville, Georgia, down the street from Easton Road. Like my parents are saying, they're building a studio down the street from where you grew up, and I'm saying, well, we don't just stand around in the studio.
Right.
They're empty until someone rents it, and then they did Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy there.
Yeah.
By the time I got to Los Angeles, Guardians premiered the day I moved in to my apartment, and all my friends worked on all of the Marvel movies, and I was out there saying, I'll do whatever you want, mister, for $75. And to be clear, that means, light or, shoot whatever.
Sure.
It was so hard to kind of start over in Los Angeles. But I managed to get some work as a director in a comedy space for Ray William Johnson. He had a YouTube channel for a while.
=3, right?
=3, man.
I remember those days. I'm old enough to remember that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm the angel of death because while I was there, he said, I'm kind of sick of doing it this way with all these people. I'm just going to shutter all of this and make quick, like easily consumed pieces. And he's still doing great. And so I moved on to marketing and worked for New Way Computers. And while I was actually at Ray's studio, I got the idea that I wanted to make a feature about something that I really cared about. And comic shops have always been that keystone in my life as far back as I can remember. I found the first comic book shop in a Yellow Pages.
Sure.
And said, wait, this is a thing? I'd been reading comics from the newsstand, the pharmacy, the grocery store, wherever I could get my hands on them. And then
Can I quickly interject?
Sure.
Just for all the young listeners out there, the Yellow Pages was a section in what was called a phone book. And that was usually where you put ads or job opportunities and so on. So sorry, go ahead, Wes. Continue on.
They need that context. It's like, why is the book yellow? That's
Yeah, right.
weird. Yeah. So anyway, Sorry, I lost my place there just trying to think of the yellow pages, like how crucial that was to everything. But going into a comic book shop, I saw it went from I knew about Batman, I knew about Superman, Spider-Man, everything we knew in the social conscience.
Right.
And then I found more. I saw a poster for this guy made out of rock called Concrete. I saw this book called Strangers in Paradise. And it didn't look action-packed. It was two ladies on the cover. And it just made me wonder, like, people read this?
Yeah.
Who's this Deadpool guy? Like, suddenly there were just all these possibilities in comics. And I started collecting all the Wolverines that I'd ever wanted and never read. And it was fantastic. The comic shop was always the place where, as a nerdy kid who loved to read, I didn't always get along with people at school because, sports are cool, reading is lame. That was the notion in the 90s anyway. And going to a comic book store, I had a shorthand with anyone I encountered, mostly adults too, which was strange. I'm used to it being a children's medium. And then you see adults coming in buying some book called Gen 13 or teens buying books that are like tailor-made for their demo, whereas everything I'd read was made for a kiddo. And the habit just kind of stuck because everywhere I've lived, I've found the comic book shop. When I travel with my wife now, she rolls her eyes because I was like, oh, there's a shop if we go around this corner, and I'll try and spend a few bucks just to walk in and see it because it's one of the few comic shops are one of the few businesses that we have that are not homogenized in any way. When you have when you think of a comic book store, you're thinking of an experience that's for the most part, very unique to your part of town where you live. Mm-hmm. It's not going to necessarily be the same throughout the country.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. I think just to sort of speak on what you mentioned there a moment ago, it feels almost like necessary. It feels like you're doing your part when you go into a comic shop. And I think listeners will tell you this. My partner, Olivia, will tell you this. I have too many books. I've got around 1,400 trades in total. So too many as is. But I feel compelled to buy something when I go to a comic shop just because I want to support their venture and keep places like this alive, a place of community, a place where this still exists in a world that is very rapidly transitioning to a digital age. Yeah. And that's not just including the shop itself, the brick and mortar, but also comics as a whole. I mean, being at San Diego last week, it feels like there's this rising tide of a digital first sort of approach with publishers, which is really scary and honestly something that I hope never truly happens. But it feels like it's it's our responsibility to participate in this thing called, brick and mortar comic shops.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
well, the social aspect is extremely important, I think now more than ever, but also when you talk about the digital side, it's interesting because from, I want to say the late 80s till maybe less than a decade ago, the comics industry was synonymous with comic shops. Mm-hmm. Forget movies, TV, all the, other IP that's out there. Comic shops and comic books were one and the same. And now with the digital front, I mean, great for the industry as a whole. Artists, writers, they need to eat too.
Right.
But the fact that a lot of people have been keeping up with their comics digitally, I don't think there's anything entirely wrong with that. But it is kind of this strange, like, it's not a dangerous spot or anything. It's just the collector aspect of comics. I don't know if it'll ever go away, but the question I've asked a number of people, are we siphoning readers with digital from the comic book shop, or are we making comics more available, more ubiquitous, and more of interest to people that possibly wouldn't necessarily go into a comic shop? Because if you think about, again, going back to the 80s and 90s, one of the things that I love is the evolution of most shops. The stores I went into, I'll call it gatekeeper attitude of, oh, you say you're a fan of comics, 9-year-old boy. Tell me what happened in issue.
Oh, really?
What happened? Or the people weren't always, social butterflies.
Sure.
But they ran the store and they always had their books on the shelf when they were supposed to. So it fed the beast in all of us that were in there. We didn't necessarily need our butts kissed when we walked through the door. But if you go to most shops now, people greet you when you walk in. They work to actually sort of help you refine your pull list, or, what are you looking for today? I can actually give you some recommendations.
Yeah, sort of curate it.
Exactly. And
right.
You don't get that through Amazon. You don't get that through Comixology, any of these digital applications. They may say, okay, you read this by Brian K. Vaughan. Here's another Brian K. Vaughan book.
Right.
And that's not, Pride is a great book, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because I liked Pride, I'm going to love Saga.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to take a step back just a little bit. I know we're getting into this sort of conversation about the comic shop, which I absolutely love, but I do want to sort of key in on the process that you went through in order to like make this love letter to, our LCS. So again, you crowdfunded this, and we talked about it a little bit before the recording. I was of course a backer of that. As soon as I saw Shopping for Superman, it was an immediate fund. I think I might have backed whatever tier that gets you the actual Blu-ray. So I can't remember off the top of my head which one that actually is, but very excited to eventually get that. And I guess let me back up a little bit here. Going back to San Diego, because I do want to touch on this. You mentioned that you won an award at San Diego for this.
Yeah. We won Best Documentary at San Diego Comic-Con.
Wow.
Their film
just
fest.
overall documentary.
Yeah.
Not just like comics related, but like every documentary. Wow.
No asterisks.
That's amazing.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you? How did that feel for you in that moment to be up against those other, films? And then also, I guess it's got to be sort of full circle, from the moment you started creating this to now winning awards at the Comic-Con.
What's crazy to me is 10 years ago, I was a sound recordist for a documentary called Animated Life, or Floyd Norman, An Animated Life. It's about this guy. He's amazing. He was an art director for Disney. I could go into his whole career, but this is about me. And
Stop giving other people credit.
Yeah, exactly. I followed him around Comic-Con, interviewed him with the director, Michael, and it was an amazing experience to be working at Comic-Con, but I wasn't there to enjoy it. It was a work day. And then 10 years later, I'm back at Comic-Con as a guest and winning an award for a movie. Like, I should have words for it, and I don't mean to sound schmaltzy or whatever, but it was that it was very emotional, and it hit like a ton of bricks.
Sure.
And I tried to thank everyone in the crowd, and I just kept losing my words. My mind kept going blank. It felt amazing to be recognized and appreciated by the community that I tried to tailor this for. I wanted everyone to like it, but I knew that it was definitely going to be for a specific group of people more than anyone else.
Sure. Now, I want to transition a little bit to the actual crowdfunding part of it. Now, you mentioned there's an intro video on the actual Kickstarter page where you sort of highlight that like you had most of, if not the majority of this finished at one point, and you felt like you were near the finish line and you really wanted to get this in the hands of distributors, and also add some extra graphics and other things like that you really wanted to make this movie special. Sort of go through the process of crowdfunding a film. And is it something that you would ever recommend to people who also maybe either want to make film or even make comics? I know that's really popular on Kickstarter as well.
Short answer, no.
Okay.
Long answer, nope.
For sure.
Kidding. It's a whole new skill set that I never really planned for.
Sure.
When I started making the movie, I thought very naively, like, I can do this. I don't know if that's Dunning-Kruger or not, but I looked at it and said, I make movies for a living. I make TV shows for a living. This is going to be cake. And then I realized when you're doing all of it, you're kind of Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, where you're playing all the instruments at once. It can be maddening. And the biggest limiting factor is money. I mean, until I'll give the pandemic credit, we have the ability now through Zoom and those applications to actually have video chats. So I can be anywhere in the country and hire a local shooter, and he can pipe the video from his camera directly into Zoom, and I can see what he's seeing. I can hear what he's hearing and say, great, I don't have to get on a plane with all my stuff, trying to save as much money as possible, packing my clothes in my tripod bag.
Sure.
And that was the case for a lot of the time. And thankfully, Dan Garino came out with his book about the comic shop while I was working on this, and I just tore through that thing. I read it a couple of times, and then I reached out to him. He was gracious. I flew out to Columbus. Strangely enough, I now live in Ohio, and I interviewed him at the Laughing Ogre, which is now my comic book store. But it was this odd. Everything fell into place. I don't believe in woo-woo whatever stuff, but everything just kind of fell into place when it needed to, because I wanted this thing done. It took about 10 years to get everything together. Yeah. The film's total budget is a little over $100,000. That isn't something I had in my pocket. And thankfully, I had shot so many elements that when I pieced it together on a timeline, I could say, okay, I have these gaps. Despite what you hear right now, listener, I do not like the word or And so there are so many cuts and moments where I say, okay, I need something that goes over this footage, because the person speaking would talk for a moment, say 6 times, or well, And as a viewer myself, when I watch or listen to anything, I'm just thinking, why didn't they take all of that out?
Right.
And so it became kind of a little more, sorry, that's a little look behind the,
Oh,
it's not an interesting look either, I don't think, but it's one of the reasons where I just had this need for footage. And I always, when you see the film, it's a very personal story for me. I've had people ask, like, why didn't you feature this cover of this book? And I'd say, because that book didn't mean to me what it means to you.
sure.
There's a combination of film production. There's an addition of a little theatrical elements. And I tried to make something that was unique, because there are other documentaries about comic book shops and how hard this industry is on retailers. But I didn't see anything that spoke to me was a movie that I wanted to make. And so that's very much where this came from. The Kickstarter part, to get back to your question, was it wasn't a nightmare. I've been very lucky to know certain people who have taken some of these projects on, who gave me really good advice and really good counsel. Sometimes I didn't always follow it, but with the Kickstarter, I got very ambitious, and the person that I spoke with was saying, you're going to want to dial this in. You're not going to want to go crazy. Maybe think $20,000 is possible. Maybe shoot for 20. And I'm thinking 20 is nice, but I can't finish it for 20, because then I'm going to have to do another one of these.
Right.
And the people who donated are going to say, well, I already gave you my money. Now you need more of my money.
Yeah.
I don't like to waste people's time, and I don't want people to ever think I'm trying to take advantage of a situation. And so that's why we settled on the number that we did. And I'm blown away that we got there, only because it is such a niche idea. And if someone types in Wes Easton, I have a decent IMDb page, but nothing that I've directed at this scale. No other documentaries that I've directed, produced, written, edited. And so it was a lot of people, I think, taking on faith that I could do this.
Sure.
And trying to convince them visually, like, trust me, I am doing everything I can to make this as good as possible. And the same is true of the Kickstarter. That's its own industry, though, actually. Kickstarter campaigns, there are people who you pay them X amount of dollars up front and then a percentage of the return, and they will help coordinate your whole look, feel, and everything. But the biggest downside to Kickstarter, I'll say, you lose so much money to Kickstarter, and you end up essentially paying their tax on what you raise. So you're paying tax on it. You're paying their tax for money you don't see. And it's a great service, but if you're aiming for, say, $50,000, you're not going to see $50,000.
You're going to need to raise like 80,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to take a chunk. And then even the shipping that everyone paid for their rewards, they take a cut of that too. So I would have to overcharge shipping, overcharge for that. And it just feels, unless you have just a hole-in-one idea, you're going to come up short in some way, unless you can raise way more than you actually need.
Sure. Yeah. So for the film, you obviously are traveling around, going to different comic shops, talking to folks within the industry. I'm just curious, and I know this probably could be a large question to ask on the spot. Are there a couple shops that sort of stand out in your mind as like shops that you will not only remember because of this venture that you're going through with Shopping for Superman, but ones that when you're in town, wherever that shop may be, you're like, I'm going back to this shop and revisiting?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
My favorite store from having worked on this project is one that I fell in love with my first trip to New York, and that's Forbidden Planet. I walked in and just said, this is the vibe. This is the clubhouse that I've always wanted. Every inch of space has the coolest, newest, and oldest, like most interesting array of items, and they even tailor their store that way. You'll see it. It's the opening shot of the movie. Is at the time they had the Captain America shield where their door handles was split down the middle.
Very cool. Yeah,
it was really solid. I think now it might be the bat symbol, or it's been about a year since I was there, so I don't know what they're doing now. But anyway, and I don't want to butcher it. Cosmic Monkey in Portland, same idea. I walked in. I was there to interview for Books with Pictures. Love that store. It's designed to be an inclusive space for people who aren't traditional comics readers. Fantastic idea, fantastic store. But then I saw Cosmic down the road and said, oh, I'll poke my head in. And awesome. I wouldn't say they have more or less product than any other store I've been to, but the way it was laid out was considerate. The guys working the desk were very pleasant, even though we're all still wearing our masks because COVID's happening.
Sure.
But it felt like the store for me. And I know for most people out there, you get that vibe when you walk into a specific store and like, I want to shop here the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. It's like I know for me, it's sort of a mixture of like the smell of old paper and, sort of the grimier the walls are, the better. More long boxes I see that are half held together, the better. Yeah. They usually have a lot of out of print trades. There's usually like old porcelain statues, like some Bowen statues from the 90s. It's got like a mixture, there's no like direct organization in the store, especially at like the front desk. There's certain things that when I walk in, and it's immediate green flag for me that like, okay, I've found a great local comic shop. Now, I'm not saying that comic shops that don't have all that aren't great shops, but like generally those are like very obvious signs that, I'm going to have a good time in here for the next 90 minutes to 3 hours.
And the store sort of tells you what it caters to by that effect.
Right.
There's a shop near Columbus that when you walk in, it's pretty bare bones in terms of decoration and storage layout, but it's very much a collector's paradise. When you walk in, you're going to see in the glass cabinets some awesome books at a reasonable price, nothing too insane. The owner is very matter of fact, very straightforward. And then you go to other shops where I think they saw enough movies in the 80s and 90s, and they're like, I'm going to make it like so-and-so's bedroom from Gremlins. Or, something like just saturate it with the culture.
It's going to look like the hideout from Monster Squad or something.
Exactly,
So, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Wes. I appreciate you joining me here today, again, at Downtown Comics here in Indianapolis, just to chat about shopping for Superman. I'm so excited for you and for the documentary and all the success that you got there in San Diego, but also to actually be able to watch it at some point is something that I'm really excited for.
You are a backer, so you're getting. Is this a long con? Was the plan to get me here? Like, where's my movie?
Yeah, I was gonna rob you. When you walked in, you didn't have a bag or anything with you, so I was like, well, he probably doesn't have a DVD on him. I am waiting for the Blu-ray. I think that's what I'm mostly waiting for, because I don't know this. I don't mean to like put you on the spot here, but for the Blu-ray backers, is there going to be special features and commentaries from yourself or whomever?
That's actually what slowed me down a little bit.
Sure.
And subtitles through the distribution process. I have a company that's making the subtitles for me. I want to make sure that's included just because I'm paying so much for it. But also the special features, I want to do a director's commentary, which will be maddening because I hate hearing my own voice.
Sure.
Lucky you, everyone that's listening to me talk right now. But for me, not the favorite voice out there. The special features that I've been trying to put together, I want to have something that covers Comic-Con, because we shot a little video while we're doing that, and just sort of a the road so far kind of take. And it doesn't need to be crazy long, but I want to include something special for the people who value physical media in that way, because if you go to our YouTube channel, I've made derivative videos. One of the people I interviewed, Joe Field, he created Free Comic Book Day. He told me, you have some interviews with some people, A, that aren't with us anymore, and B, really cover a lot of bases that maybe you don't use in the movie. You should start cutting these down. And I'm thinking, how much work this has taken, Joe? You know how much of my life? My wife will walk past my office and be like, I thought you were done with that. Like, I'm never done with this. But
the mark of a true artist, right? Never done. Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, it's really important stuff what they're saying. If you really care about the history of the retail industry, there's some stuff you've never heard before, or if you have, that goes into greater detail with some of the voices that have been there from the beginning that made it happen. And I am working to get more of those out there for everybody else. But for people who are buying the Blu-ray, I want it owning my own collection of videos. I want it to be like the way I treat my movies. Like this goes on the shelf. It goes on the shelf here. I always know where it is because I value it, and it's not just what you find in the Walmart $2.99 bin or whatever. Like I want it to mean something to have that in your home.
Oh, Wes, I knew that we were cut from the same cloth. As I was saying earlier from the trade, shameless brag, I also own just about 700 movies, physical movies as well. So, it is definitely one of those things that and part of the reason why I do that, and we don't have to talk about this too long, but part of the reason why I'm doing this is, and I think probably why you're also doing the actual physical release of the film, is because I think we've sort of lost our attachment to our media and to our entertainment. When everything's on streaming, we sort of just watch whatever's in front of us or whatever we already pay for. And when we own it, we can we have it. Like we can
Right.
we can go watch Superbad, or we can go read Jeff Johns' Flash run, like, because I have it right here. I don't have to just read it or watch it because it's convenient to me. So I love the fact that you're doing the Blu-ray, and I love, again, it's sort of, I'm trying to like full circle this whole conversation back to the power of the local comic book shop. I guess maybe the last question I'll ask you, because again, I don't want to take any more time for you and your Gen Con venture that you're here actually in town for. Is there a particular person within the documentary that you want listeners of this conversation to sort of key in on and think, wow, from your perspective, that was an incredible conversation, and it's one of the most memorable moments of making this film?
Oh, well, I have to be honest. I've seen it so many times now that to ask a question about any part of it, I can only remember the parts that are flawed in any way.
Oh, sure.
I don't know how that sounds, honestly, but to give you a quick, Joe Ferrara, he runs Atlantis Fantasy World down in Santa Cruz, and that's famous for, it was in the Lost Boys movie. That's the comic book shop they're in. Joe is one of those voices. He has one of those voices, I should say, that whatever he says, you just want to sit and listen. And when I went to interview him, I was on my way to interview another gentleman, Bud Plant. He was part of the direct market back in the day, one of the distributors. So I'm driving up to see him, and I figured I'll pop into Joe's store. And we talked for about 5 hours.
Wow.
Just rolled the camera, and whatever he would say, I'd ask him to elaborate here or there. And I'd say, I'm so sorry for taking up so much of your time. He's like, oh, it's fine. I'm here, And we talked about everything from Star Trek to running the store and his experience with ordering comics back in the day and how fraught that would be. And it meant a lot to me at Comic-Con. I mean, a lot of the people who are in this movie, even people who represent locations that are in this movie, were at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And Joe was there too. And I got to chat with him and catch up. And he saw me come and he said, oh, hey, Wes. I haven't seen him in 6 years.
Wow.
And he just knew me instantly. He said, I've seen the videos, the one of me. Is there more of that? And I said, yeah, I was going to make a second one. He's like, oh, you don't have to. I just, I'm curious what's in the movie versus what's on YouTube. And
sure,
he really cares about all of this.
Yeah. You'd be surprised, again, interviewing folks for the Oblivion Bar. I can tell you that, like, you think sometimes, oh, I'm taking too much of, Paul Pope's time, or I'm really talking off Michael Conrad's head about his book. But these folks want to talk about this stuff, and of course we want to stay cognizant of like taking too much of the time. I'm trying to do that right now with you. But like at the end of the day, you agreed to do this in the same way that they agreed to do, Shopping for Superman, because they want to get out all of these things, their experiences, their thoughts on that process, their, memories, good times, bad times, all the things. So,
well, that's at the core of why one of the things that kept me going is this is not hard for you and I to talk about this. And to talk with shop owners about shop owners will talk your ear off about the problems with distribution and this, that, and the other, and their experience, because they love it. I mean, it's not always the best day they're having, but they truly love talking about this sort of thing. And that's why I'm not saying the whole process was easy, but that aspect of it was always easy. I rarely had to, in one instance, I had to essentially sit there and ask a person, can you elaborate? I had to coax an answer out because they didn't love it the way every other shop owner I had met did.
Sure.
And it was evident just in the conversation. I try to romanticize things because it's an easy thing to romanticize, I think. And I said, so what got you to open your own store here and to stay in business for 20 years? And he just said, money. And I said, okay, I think that's our time.
And I've got lunch, everybody. Right. Let's go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. To hear anyone say that they got into comics for money is kind of like
it's insane.
It's like a juxtaposition to the art form. But okay, well, Wes, thank you so much for joining me here today. It truly is an honor to sit here and chat with you again. As I said earlier, I'll just sort of butter you up one last time.
Sure.
Very, very happy with what you've done with Shopping for Superman. Excited to eventually watch it. Excited for people to eventually get their hands on this, and then also just continue to shout that this thing is a thing from the megaphone. That's part of the reason why I wanted to have you here today, is so we could sort of put a spotlight on this for our listenership. While it may not be Joe Rogan numbers, we have, I think, a pretty nice listenership of folks who love comics. And, I want to make them aware of Shopping for Superman. So,
on that note, have you ever taken DMT?
DMT?
Sorry, I was thinking of Joe Rogan. Like, if we get these numbers up,
No,
we're gonna start.
I was going to offer
about-
you some ayahuasca at some point, but it's totally up to you. It's your comfortability. So
That is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm really terrible at this, so I'm gonna just push this in. Shoppingforsuperman.com. You can pre-order the movie, the Blu-ray. You can also see some of our progress so far. You can follow us on the socials. Just search for Shopping for Superman, and you'll see what we're up to right now.
How can people follow? If people want to follow you specifically, is that something you want to throw out there? Or do you want people to just follow the Shopping for Superman socials and such?
I think you can find me if you type in Wes Easton.
Sure.
My Facebook I keep private because occasionally I drink and post.
Sure.
And so the next day I'm like, why did I have a problem with that? Like I'm going to take that down.
You're drunk typing like Doomsday Clock was a good book.
Exactly. Well, the other day my wife was like, why are you asking about Benghazi? I'm like, did we ever figure it out? That was my question.
I just want to know, did we figure it out? Yeah.
Just stop, man.
Well, Wes, it's been great talking to you. I appreciate it. And we'll let you go back to Gen Con, enjoy yourself. And hopefully we can talk to you full form at some point down the road, possibly on the Oblivion Bar when you have some time once Shopping for Superman is officially out.
I'd love that.
All right, cool.
Thanks so much.
Alrighty, there's that conversation with Wes Easton. Again, thank you, Wes, for coming on the show. And thank you so much for giving us an early screener of Shopping for Superman. Can't brag about it enough. I think it's great. Aaron, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope people go and listen to this conversation.
I hope so too.
And go watch this at some point.
For sure. I agree. Multiple times I agree with you saying that this needs to be like required, required education for the new comic book. Anybody in the comic book industry, anybody that wants to be in the comic book industry, this is an important thing for them to watch and understand. And that way, what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that'll do it for episode 207 of the Oblivion Bar podcast. That'll do, Pig. Next week on the show, we'll be talking to writer and artist of Bridge Planet 9. Jared Thorne is going to be on the show. His first published work through Top Shelf it's incredible, everybody. Again, Jared reached out to us, and Aaron, we are lucky enough to get emails from folks, creators that want to come onto the show. It's really hard to not get every single person on here at some point. But when I saw what Jared is doing with Bridge Planet 9, this sci-fi, incredible black and white first work from him over at Top Shelf, we could not get him on the show. So
it's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. Again, I hope that doesn't sound braggy, but it is one of those things that we just can't. We can't get everybody on the show. Jared was somebody who we had to have on the show. So very excited. And also, we should brag really quickly. We're talking to Todd McFarlane. We're recording this on September 14th. We're talking to Todd McFarlane tomorrow, Aaron.
Boom.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Not boom, Aaron.
Not boom, Aaron?
I said boom, like dropping the mic or like an
yeah.
explosion, but no, it's not Boom Studios, so never mind. It's a little of a joke.
Yeah, okay, it was good. It went
Thanks.
way over my head.
It would not go over my head. I would catch it. My reflexes are too fast.
Aaron, take us out of here.
Sir. Okay. Subscribe to our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible. I said that correctly. Audible, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, that's where we are. Thank you to our patrons: Alice, Aaron, Botter, Brandon, Brennan, Brett, Chris S., Chris Y., Christy, David, Elliot, Erica, George, Gianni, Greg, Haley, Ham 6, Jake, Jeremy, Joe, John M., Justin, Kyle, Kristen, Losi, Mac, Mike, Olivia, Ryan I., Robert, Saunter, Sebastian, Sean, Travis, Tyler, Zach, and Brad and Lisa. If you want to support the show without spending any money, a follow on your preferred podcasting platform and a 5-star rating and or review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify helps the show a ton. Mm-hmm. Follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch at Oblivion Bar Pod. Official merch for the show can be found on our website, oblivionbarpodcast.com. Thank you to OniPress and Endless Comics and Cards for sponsoring the show. Thank you, KXD Studios, for all of our Oblivion Bar art. He's at KXD Graphics on Instagram. Thank you, Dream Kid, for all of our musical themes. DJ Skyvac for our grid theme. And last but not least, do not forget to tip your bartenders 20% or more, or else.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here for episode 207. We will see you next week for episode 208.